Welcome to A Meaningful Marketplace.
I'm Sarah Massoni from Oregon State University's Food Innovation Center, where I've helped countless dreamers launch their new food products. It's the science of taking a food delight from the kitchen to mass manufacturing and still keeping its great taste. That's what I do. I've been called the woman with the $1 million palate, although I haven't tried to cash that check yet. Listen in weekly for real-life stories.
I'm Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce and author of Preservation Pantry, modern canning from root to top and stem to core. I love inspiring business owners to get started on their journey, encourage folks to be part of their local community, and I'm excited to help business owners tell their stories. Hello and welcome to the Meaningful Marketplace. We are here weekly to discuss the journeys of food entrepreneurs. We are glad you've joined us today as we bring you stories of hope and inspiration. This is Sarah Marshall, owner of Marshall's Hot Sauce. Sarah Massoni is gone. We are actually broadcasting live from New York today. She's still at the Fancy Food Show in New York City. And I got to meet Melissa, one of your farm neighbors from Wyoming, Molly from Yellowstone Spice Company. And I got to try her hot sauce today. And she said to say hello.
That's awesome. I didn't know that they were there at the show.
Yes, they came with the Regional Food Business Center. And so they had a booth on the very top floor with all of the entrepreneurs that came along with the Food Innovation Center and the Regional Food Business Center. So I got to meet everybody today and it was very fun. Very fun day. My feet are tired. I walked 1,000,000 miles through the Javits Center. It's huge. It's the biggest food show that I've ever been to, but it was really fun. That was the only person I found from Wyoming in the whole place.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, they weren't at the farmer's market on Saturday, and Kyle stood in for Scout and Molly, and he was like, oh, they're off. It's for work. It's not for fun. So that makes me feel better. I'm here working the market for them. But I didn't even pry. I was just like, okay, cool, Kyle. He's like, they'll be back next week. I'm like, okay, I'll see them then. I knew Fancy Food Show was coming up, but I didn't even put those things together in my mind.
Well, that's where they are.
Well, now when they get to the market on Saturday, I'm going to have to say, well, hello, because we neighbor. They may have told you this. We always request to be next to each other at the farmer's market because we help each other out. If we need a bathroom break or something,
Yeah,
it's fun to neighbor. So
I know. I said, how come you're not a guest on our show?
Well, next season they'll have to be. Yes.
That's what I said. I said, we'll get you booked. So they were pretty excited. And I got to try their sauces and they do some mushroom blends. So if people want to look them up. They're Yellowstone Spice Company and they're also out of Lander, Wyoming, along with Melissa. So check them out. So we have been partnering with the Regional Food Business Center to bring you guests from our 6-state region. Obviously, you heard Melissa's voice, but we are currently meeting with business owners from the great state of Wyoming. I would like to introduce you to our co-host, Melissa Hemken. She's the co-lead of the Regional Food Business Center in Wyoming. Thank you for being our Wyoming guide and expert for this whole time. It's our last show together until next time.
I know, when we have 8 food entrepreneurs, 8 weeks we record, I'm always like, oh, that's such a long time. It's 2 months. And then it just goes so fast. And there's so many more people we should talk to, like Yellowstone Spice Company. Yeah. That's like, oh, we could just keep rolling just with Wyoming people.
I know. Well, we're going to circle back around. We're going to keep this train moving and we'll come back to Wyoming. And it's been so fun to have you. I feel like 8 weeks flew by. And it was great to meet all of these wonderful people. Any final things you want to guide people towards in Wyoming or things you want them to check out?
Yeah, so we've got quite a few stuff going on. We are just rolling out our Wyoming Business Builder grant program. So those folks were awarded grants this winter, and then we're starting to meet with them in July as a cohort, and they're getting started on their projects, which is the fun part to see what they're doing with their funding and how they're growing their businesses. And then right after that, we're hosting 2 pitch-in places here in Wyoming in September and October. And Sarah Massoni's coming to the one in October. And maybe Sarah Marshall, you should too. Just saying. That one's in Jackson, so it's easier to fly in and out of, whereas Sheridan, Wyoming is not as easy to fly in and out of, just because the flights are a little bit more constricted. Like they have a commuter to Denver, but that's
When is the one in Sheridan?
The one in Sheridan's the first weekend in September.
My best friend is here with me from Portland, and she's from Sheridan, Wyoming. And As soon as
Well,
she heard me say it, she like looked at me like, like, are we going?
well, never mind. Come to the one in Sheridan. That would be just as fun too. You'd have a reason to come, see your family. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Bring your friend. Yeah, it's the first Saturday in September is the one in Sheridan. The first Saturday in October is the one in Jackson, Wyoming.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can't promise, but I can look into it.
Yeah. Totally fine. We're going to have Mike Gable of CSU Spur join us at the one in Sheridan, which I know that he's the co-host for the Colorado podcast series. So
He is. We love
listeners
Mike.
listeners will recognize that name and his voice. But
Hmm.
he's going to come up and be our lead judge in Sheridan, and then Sarah Mosoni is coming to be our lead judge in Jackson. So we're excited to host them and introduce them to all of our food entrepreneurs and for them to learn all the Food Innovation Center services that those two can provide.
Very cool. Well, exciting things. I'm so glad that this show has brought all those wonderful people together. I think it's so great that we've all got to meet and work together and talk, and it's inspired all these different pitch sessions and all these different connections, and that's exactly what we set out to do. So I'm glad that it's working.
Yeah, for sure.
And we would like to encourage you to connect with your state by signing up for the Regional Food Business Center newsletter. It's a breeze to sign up. Just go to Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional foodbusinesscenter.com, hit connect with us, and choose the button to receive newsletters. And we want to thank our sponsor for supporting the Meaningful Marketplace. Thank you for helping us spread the word about small business owners and entrepreneurs. Let's hear a word from our sponsor. The Northwest and Rocky Mountain Regional Food Business Center is the proud sponsor of the Meaningful Marketplace podcast, giving a voice to food from across the 6-state region of Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. The Food Business Center supports Northwest and Rocky Mountain food industry makers as part of the USDA's National Network of Food Business Centers, supporting a more resilient, diverse, and competitive food system as a go-to source for small and mid-tier food and farm businesses with a focus on underserved communities, providing education in the form of technical knowledge, business programs, and industry news. We sponsor trade shows, meetups, and conferences to connect growers, producers, retailers, distributors, and processors, all to stimulate business and raise the standards of our storied food industry. Join us as we travel through the 6-state region, learning more about food makers, food hubs, and food systems. Visit the website at Northwest Rocky Mountain Regional Food Businesses.com to get connected. And I would like to introduce you to our guests today. We have Susan Frost with us. She's the owner of Queens of Goodness, making premium creamed raw honey in Lander, Wyoming. We're delighted to have you on the show today. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
And we always like to connect our listeners to you on social media and online. So, what's the best way for them to find you in that world?
So our website is queensofgoodness.com, and it's queens plural because we need many queens to make all the honey that goes into our products. And we have the same handles for Instagram and Facebook. And we're Good Queens on X.
Perfect. We'll make sure to link those in the show notes. And we always like to start at the beginning of people's journey. So let's talk about when you started your business and what inspired you to start Queens of Goodness.
Okay, so I've been a beekeeper for the last 7 years, and I sold my honey at farmers markets, and I even tried making some products with honey, like granola and lollipops and stuff. And then 3 years ago, I retired. I was a research scientist at NASA, and I retired. And by a year and a half later, I was really bored and I was depressed, quite depressed. So I looked at like, what can I do to expand my business? And beekeeping is an incredibly hard, low margin job. And I didn't see that I would be able to really succeed that way. It's not what I wanted, how I wanted to make money. So I thought I can look at for ideas that would use honey. And so I started looking at something that was healthy, like a healthy granola bar or healthy. I thought about ginger turmeric shots, things like that, but they didn't taste very good. So then I came up with the idea of making creamed honey and adding turmeric and ginger to it. And you can just take a teaspoon of that and mix it in warm milk, and you have a golden milk latte, and a delicious one. So my goal was to make delicious products that use raw, unfiltered honey and healthy natural ingredients. The next thing was I talked to Mike Hoyt of the Bootstrap Collaborative in Fremont County, Wyoming, and I said, I want to do something more with my business. And he told me about it's called the Impact 307. It's a Wyoming startup challenge. So I talked to him, I developed a pitch, and I did the pitch, made it to the finals. And then I worked with another mentor, and he helped me sort of develop my whole pitch and company ideas. I don't know what you call it, all the entrepreneur stuff. And then I did the pitch, and I was one of the winners. So I got money to buy equipment and kind of get myself started. So that's kind of the story.
That's such a great journey to be on. I didn't expect you to say that you went from being a NASA research scientist to a beekeeper.
Well, bees are very scientific, so
Yeah,
and complex. So in some ways, it's actually not as long of a leap as you think.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about what creamed honey is, because I don't think we've had anybody on the show talk about that before. So could you tell our listeners the difference between a creamed honey and, just a regular honey they would buy off the shelf at the grocery store?
Yeah, so creaming honey is a week-long process where you add a starter crystal, which is just creamed honey, to liquid honey, and then you're churning it. Well, what we do is we churn it so that it controls the crystallization of the honey. So you're going to have a crystallized honey, but it's smooth and spreadable. Whereas if you left your raw unfiltered honey in a jar, within a month, sometimes it'll crystallize and you can't get it out. So some of the equipment I bought was a machine that turns on every hour, and it churns the honey for 15 minutes. And I'll have that go for about 48 hours. And then I add the ingredients. And then after that, we bottle it and you let it sit. It has a period of sitting because it continues to crystallize. Originally, when we started, of course, we didn't have the machine. And we're doing it by hand. So that means getting a mixing drill, which is like a slow speed drill. And I had a special stainless steel attachment. So we'd put it in a 2-gallon bucket and churn it. We didn't do it for 48 hours, but we would do it for like 6 hours. So it was very labor intensive.
Yeah. It was probably such a relief to get that equipment.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. That's so great. And do you find when you're doing farmers markets, do you have to educate customers a lot about what cream honey is and talk about your process?
Somewhat, yeah. And in Europe, it's the most common kind of honey. And in Britain, they don't, they call the other honey runny honey. So yeah, and really my product takes a lot of education, especially like the turmeric ginger, explaining how they can make golden milk and explaining all the uses. Because they're like, well, what else can I do with it besides put it in tea? Like I have an elderberry one. So I explain like you can spread it on toast or bagels. The turmeric ginger, I'll make like polenta or a grain and I add it to that, or you can add it to chicken and lots of things. But a number of people do know, they've heard of creamed honey before.
And Melissa, do you know Susan from the farmers market or from your town? You guys live in the same town, right?
We live in the same town, yeah. And I actually first met Susan because I have bees and I'm very much a beginning beekeeper. And I've leaned on Susan's knowledge a lot about sent her pictures of dead bees and been like, why did they die? I don't know what happened. And learned about different equipment. And Susan's been helping us get, I don't know if we came up with the name Susan, but we started basically a Lander Beekeeper Club.
You named it Fremont Buzzers, right?
I did. I said that, but then it sounds like buzzards, like the bird of prey. I said jokingly in a meeting, but that's been fun for Susan sends out an email and gets us together and shares information about bees and what's going on. And just to get to know other folks who have bees and share equipment. Like one of my hives was really strong this spring and they were filling up the brood boxes. So I need to split them or else they were going to swarm. Well, I didn't have other brood boxes. So I immediately text Susan and so like, Susan, do you have any extra brood boxes before they all leave me? They just fly off if they're not happy.
She saved your bees.
Did.
That's so great.
How many hives are you running now, Susan? Because you have your own bees and you're buying honey from other people, right?
Yeah. So I have 5 hives, and that honey is for giving to friends, and I sell some at the farmers markets. But because I have a licensed facility, I need to buy the honey from licensed and inspected producers. So I have local 3 different producers I bought from in the state, and I'm able to get Fremont County honey. And one of my goals in the future is to even, if I expand regionally, to be able to get Utah honey and Colorado honey, and kind of market the product to different states, because my product sells well in like specialty food stores or gift stores. So then right now I'm branding it on the top of my jar. I say raw Wyoming honey.
Yeah, one of the cool things about creamed honey is it can still be raw, but doesn't go hard on you like most raw honey does, where you're chiseling it out. So that's the nice thing about creaming it. Could
Yeah.
you maybe explain a little bit, Susan, about the differences, like the runny honey, as you mentioned, from what they call it in Europe? The reason it's heated, right, and processed, and it's a different grade. Maybe you could explain those different grades of honey. The honey that you buy in the little teddy bear that actually is
Oh.
smooth and more liquid, it's been heated to a certain point, correct?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, there's a lot of intricacy about honey. They'll call it pure honey, and that means it's just honey, but often it's been filtered and heated. So, it's often pasteurized, which is like taking it up to 140 degrees or more for a certain amount of time to kill off all the yeast. Because the issue is if your honey has too much moisture, if it has more than about 18% water to honey, the yeast can ferment and you'll end up with mead or something, right? Eventually. That's why they pasteurize the honey. They kill off the yeast so there's no chance of fermentation. And well, the beekeepers need to be cognizant of the honey that the moisture content is right. And the bees will ripen it. They fan the honey, they remove the moisture, they add the enzymes, and then they seal it off at the right moisture content, which is generally like 16 to 18%. It depends on the nectar source. Like in Wyoming, it's often 16.5%, the honey here. So, but if a beekeeper harvests the honey before it's been capped, then it might have too much moisture also. So then the other thing, some people will say the honey's raw, and I think they mean unheated, or see, there's not an exact definition of raw honey. The FDA doesn't, USDA, they don't define it. But sometimes you'll see something that says raw honey and it's still liquid. So, and it's been on the shelf for a couple months. And I'm like, that's not raw unfiltered. So probably what they've done is filtered it. But to filter it, you have to heat it some to get it through the filter, because the filter's, small. It's less than like 200 microns or something. And basically then you're filtering out all the pollen and some of the beneficial stuff that people want to get. The other thing I would like to point out, we spend a lot of time trying to educate people about honey. So people see organic honey and they're like, oh, it's organic. But often it's actually not from the USA. It's generally from like South America or India and stuff, where they don't have any farming nearby. It's like in the rainforest or something. So there's no farming using chemicals nearby. Whereas you can't really have certified organic in the USA because the bees will travel up to 3-mile radius. And so you can't prove that it's organic. So one of my friends, I was explaining this to her, and she went home and looked at her Costco raw organic honey, and she's like, it's from India, or sometimes they'll tell you like a list of places they're from. So I don't know. I just think it's so important for us to support local beekeepers, regional beekeepers, just USA beekeepers. So that's something I'm always sad when someone's buying imported honey.
If people want to get your honey, is the best way to do that from you at the farmer's market, or do you sell it in local stores, or can they buy it online? What's the best way to support you and your business?
Oh, that would be great to get support. Thank you. I sell it at farmers markets. There's one in Lander, a couple in Lander, Laramie. I've done some in Utah, but I also sell it at different gift shops. And if you go to my website, we have a list of all the stores that carry our products and links to the links to them. And then there's 2 stores right now that are selling online. So people can get it online by contacting those stores. I don't do any online shipping myself.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to hear about which product you think tells your story best. So we'll be right back.
Oregon State University's College of Agricultural Sciences and the Food Innovation Center are proud sponsors of Meaningful Marketplace. With a mission to serve all Oregonians, we are committed to giving voice to those whose food and agricultural stories are not always heard. By providing access and opportunity for a more diverse and just food system, because food brings people together.
Okay, we're back from our break, and I would love to hear you tell us about which product tells your queen bee story best.
Well, the signature product was the golden milk. So I take turmeric, ginger, a little bit of cinnamon to kind of warm up the flavor, because the turmeric can be a little bitter, right? And the ginger can be sort of hot. And then the cinnamon balances it. And then there's a little bit of black pepper, because that makes the curcumin, which is in the turmeric, the active ingredient, it makes it more absorbable by the body. So I think that's kind of the signature product, because it was something I really believed in. I believe in the health benefits of turmeric and ginger. And as part of my education I did the Get Your Recipe to Market class, and it was amazing class, by the way. And I'm sorry, Sarah Masani is not on, because I was going to thank her. She helped me with a bunch of questions about my product. I was talking about the spices and stuff, and she recommended suppliers. And anyway, and also I got a lot of help from the Get Your Recipe to Market from Lisa Wickstrom. She was like instrumental, and she still gives me guidance and stuff. I can just call her up and get an appointment and talk to her. So she helped me find the fair trade spice suppliers, which is really cool, because that was an important part of what I wanted to do is have some single origin fair trade spices where they're coming not directly from the farmer, but there isn't the same middleman in between. So the spices I'm carrying are premium, and then some of them are fair trade. So that's probably, it's embodying my values there.
Is there any flavor you've tried to go with the honey that didn't work? You were like, oh no, this is not going to work.
Good question. I did try the fermented garlic one time, and like you've made before,
Yeah.
Melissa, but yeah, I didn't like that. But no, almost everything's been really good. Another thing about suppliers, I wanted to make a pomegranate one because they're so healthy, right? But you can buy pomegranate stuff off the internet, but it always has sugar. It's really pomegranate juice. And that was a real challenge for me in the beginning, was finding good suppliers for the fruits, for the elderberry, and I have a blueberry lemon. So it turns out what I learned is you don't want to buy from a company that does supplements, because if it's a supplement, they don't actually have to label what's in the supplement. So I bought some blueberry extract from a company, it was supposedly powdered blueberries, but they didn't say, it had a weird color. It was really blue. Blueberries aren't that blue. And it was really sweet, and like it was gummy. So I was like, what the heck is in that? It was really disturbing. So I have found an excellent supplier, and I can't do pomegranate. I think one of the companies I could get pomegranate, but I have to get like 50 kilos or some ridiculous amount. So
could you tell us a little bit, Susan, about, because other types of flavored honey, like you'll see buckwheat honey and clover honey, and that's more what the bees eat, right?
Yeah, or lavender honey, orange blossom. It's the nectar they're feeding on. So it's like a monofloral, they call it. And then you also, I guess the other point differentiator about my product is that I'm using whole freeze-dried fruits. I'm not doing flavors or extracts, or like lemon. I have a whole lemon that goes into my lemon. They actually take the peel and the pulp and the seeds. Everything goes into the freeze dryer and gets ground up. Whereas if you get lemon honey, a lot of times it's going to be lemon oil that's added. So that's a real difference there. And so I say that, you're getting all the benefits of the fruit. So the blueberry and the elderberry, you're going to actually even see little like tiny, tiny elderberry seed skins, like minute, but if you dissolve it in water, you will see something there because you're getting that seed and the health benefits from the berry.
And I wanted to ask you about the name of your business because it's called Queens of Goodness. Is it in honor of the queen bees or are you the queen bee?
Oh, no, I'm not the queen bee. For sure not. That's why it had to be plural because I'm like, oh, I'm not the queen bee. No, it's because it's in honor of the queens and the goodness that the bees bring us. Of course, the queens don't bring it, but the workers, which are all females, people tend to say him, the worker bee, but they're all women. The drones, the male bees, do have important roles of fertilizing the queen, but that's about it. So.
In a typical hive, how many worker bees, how many drones, and then there's one queen. But how many workers and drones to one queen are there in a typical hive? In a healthy hive, like I've had some really unhealthy hives that didn't overwinter because they were too small population, but in a good healthy one.
Yeah, there's you're going to have 30 to 50,000 worker bees. And that's a good question. The percent of drones varies throughout the year because in the fall they kick the drones out because all they would just have to feed them. They have no purpose. But I can't tell you the exact proportion. You got me there.
I've learned to identify the queen on a frame, but I still have not gotten the drones and the workers totally sorted out. You can, when you get to know your bees, look at them and tell them apart, but there's minute differences there.
Yeah, they have big eyes. That's how I
Oh,
tell.
bigger. The drones have bigger eyes than the
Yeah.
worker bees. Okay.
They're larger. They have big eyes because they fly in some kind of a swarm or a cloud of drones, and they're looking for the queens because they all want to fertilize. Should they be fertilized by maybe 10 drones, something like that?
Okay. They need to have more sight. I'll have to pay attention when I pull some more frames out again of looking for big eyes.
Yeah.
And do you think that you know, that honey tastes different per the different regions where it's sourced from? Like, can you tell if honey is sourced from Wyoming compared to if you had honey that came from where I am in Oregon? Do you think you could tell the difference?
I don't know that I could tell a difference between clover honey there and here. But places like in the South, you have plants like sourwood and all these acacia, all these crazy plants that, that I wouldn't find in Oregon. So I would say I couldn't, I'm not sure. I'm sure experts could do it, but I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But I know like Oregon has a buckwheat. Oregon buckwheat is different than the Midwest buckwheat. It does taste different. And I'm not sure why, but maybe because of the environment.
Buckwheat honey is some of my favorite honey. I just love that darker flavor that's in it. And it's cool to think about I could like plant that enough buckwheat to make my honey for my bees taste that way. But do you know, Susan, how many acres of buckwheat I would need around my hives to make their honey taste like buckwheat? It'd probably be quite a lot, right?
I don't know. The interesting thing is where I live in Sinks Canyon outside of Lander, we have a lot of what's called sulfur buckwheat. It's a wildflower, and I often get pretty dark honey that I believe it's coming from that buckwheat. And this year it's really dark again. Last year it was, more mellow because the bees, it's fascinating how they choose their nectar sources. So this year they seem to be wanting a lot of the buckwheat. So I'm going to get some nice dark honey.
I'll have to trade you my clover honey then, Susan. I have a lot of clover, Sarah, at my place, clover and alfalfa.
Yeah.
So I get a very nice honey, but it's not the darker, unique flavors that I like.
We have a beekeeper at our farmers market in Portland, and well, his farm is south of us, but he has a honey that's a meadow foam honey, and to me, it tastes like marshmallows. It's like sweet and it tastes like candy, but it's just from the meadow foam flower that the bees feed on. And he has hives that he moves around to different farmer friends' farms that are farming certain things. So he'll have like a carrot flower honey from our carrot farmer, and like he'll do the hives all over. So it's pretty cool. I mean, I didn't know that much about honey until had a farmer's market neighbor friend who's a beekeeper, but I feel like that's one of the things that is so special about the farmer's market. People should go and talk to the beekeepers that are there, and you can learn so much from them, and you can taste all these different things. Like I think before I just thought, honey, I think I knew that honey was maybe good if you had allergies, you should have honey from your local beekeeper, but that was about it. But there's so much more than that, there's so much more to learn and know.
Have you, Sarah, ever done any cooking with bee pollen?
Yeah, we have a hot sauce that we put some bee pollen in from
Oh,
our farm,
really?
yeah, from our honey, from our beekeeper. That
Cool. What hot sauce? Is it a sweeter hot sauce then?
It's for our hot sauce that we do with a Greek restaurant, and so it has blue fenugreek in it, and it has some bee pollen and fennel pollen. It has all these things that go with the Greek spices of the restaurant. They cook everything over a wood fire grill, and they marinate like their lamb ribs in it that they get lamb from the farmer's market, and then they marinate mushrooms in it, and then they serve it at the restaurant. That restaurant is called Bluto's, and the sauce is called Liquid Gold. So I tried to just like have all these things that kind of embodied the food that they were going to be cooking over the fire.
That sounds delicious. The first time I saw bee pollen was from another land beekeeper, Jennifer. She collects it. They're called bee pollen traps. So you put them on the outside of the hive, and then the bees go through the Susan has a trap. Maybe she can explain it a little bit better. But they go through the door and they brush off the pollen, and it falls into a little collector area. But what I was so surprised by was all the fantastic colors in that pollen. And Susan, I think you live by Jennifer, and so you might know more about what makes all her pollen so like purple and yellow and blue.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's beautiful what she gathers, but yeah, I'm not sure what all the plants are, but I've seen it. It's beautiful.
Have you ever tried collecting bee pollen from your hives, Susan?
I actually bought a pollen trap and I put it on, but I always am questioning whether the bees need that resource. So I've never really left it on long at all because I'm like, oh, maybe they maybe need the pollen. I don't know. But you do see a lot of pollen that falls on the bottom board. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't use it. They bring it into the hive, and then they don't have a need for it. You definitely wouldn't want to keep the trap on all the time, or put it on when they had really full frames of honey, so you knew that they were good to go.
yeah.
Well, Susan, do you have any advice for people that are currently dreaming up a business?
Yeah, I would say be really resourceful. And that's what's gotten me really far here. Well, I did the startup challenge, and then I met Jen Faulkner, who's Melissa's partner with the regional food business center in Wyoming here. And she started putting me in touch with different activities and things going on and opportunities. So I've been like super lucky that Melissa and Jen have been looking out for me and encouraging me. And that's how I found out about Get Your Recipe to Market. That program is amazing. I can't say enough about it. It was just took me from start to finish. I would say the one thing, and it doesn't make sense for them to cover this, but the one area I'm needing help right now and I'm kind of struggling with is just getting my product sold. I've made it into many stores and such, and I'm doing well, but I kind of struggled with how to go about this and yeah, just what I should do. So that's the one thing I haven't seen really, but Jen meets with me and gives me ideas and stuff. Also, there was this Biz Builder grant that was available through the Food Business Center, and I used ChatGPT to help me write it. And so I'd encourage people to learn to use AI tools to do some of their work, even in coming up with marketing materials. We spent the winter, my husband is a retired software person, and he built a whole website for me. And we used a lot of ChatGPT to word things better. So I think that's really been helpful to me and just being aware of opportunities.
Yeah, Susan, some things that we've really talked about is the strategy behind it of like how big do you want to go? Like, do you want to get an employee? And so a lot of that goes into the, sales of like, oh, well, maybe, you hit a certain threshold of sales and that's where you find your sweet spot. And maybe you do want to like, kick it out of the park and hire 5 employees. That's a lot of decisions that comes into it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am now. And it's interesting. It's a challenge. Yeah, just do the best I can. Right.
You're no longer bored, right?
Yeah, I'm no longer bored. It's a little hard to manage. Like it's different when I guess I did learn a lot about being a business owner. Like I'd worked in government and industry, and I was like, oh wow, this is really tough what the small business owners go through. And I really understand so much more of that now. And so that's been really eye-opening and really a good thing for me to have more empathy for people.
Especially with a food business, because there's a lot more food safety and things to think about versus if you were just selling frisbees or something like that.
I think just being at the food show today, they had all the small micro businesses up on the very top floor. And I noticed that the energy was so much better up there. Everyone was really happy and, their heart is in their business and they're excited to tell you about it no matter who you are. And kind of when you went to the other parts of the floor, a lot of times it would either just be maybe somebody who's working for a company or, just more of like a corporate kind of vibe. So it was more like salesman-y, rather than like the heart and soul and spirit. So I've really realized that from all of these makers. It was very apparent today. Like you just felt like the love from these small businesses. So it is very hard, I think, to have your own food business, as you all know. But I also think it brings people a lot of joy, and you could really like feel that today, I think, in the fancy food show space for sure.
That's a good observation and so very true of how people are reacting, whether they're just the employee or they're the owner, operator, employee, floor mopper,
Yeah,
all of it.
for sure. Susan, why don't we tell people one more time how to find you and connect with you?
Yeah, so queensofgoodness.com and then Queens of Goodness on Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect. Well, it was wonderful to hear your story. I love what you're doing and the way that you're healing and helping people through your product. And I can't wait to try it. Hopefully, sometime I get to come out to Wyoming and try it in person. We'll see. And Melissa, thank you so much for joining us for these 8 weeks and being our co-host. You've done a great job of showing us what wonderful things Wyoming has to offer, and it's been really fun to see you again on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I will look forward to hearing as you go on to Idaho next, I think, right? Is
Yep,
that the progression? Yep.
moving
So
on to Idaho.
I'll continue listening and I'll hear about everyone from Idaho.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, Melissa and Sarah. This has been fun.
Yay. Thank you guys. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into the show. And you can rate us on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. You can follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Meaningful Marketplace Podcast. You can call or text Sarah and I with questions, 503-395-8858. And we couldn't do this without our fantastic team at Joy of Creation Production House. Thank you to Dave, our production coordinator, and Haley, our audio engineer. And we will be back next week. Thanks for joining, everybody. Bye.